This episode of the Better 2 podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and Needom, author of My Days with the Dark Muse, as well as Love is Worth Waiting For. Hi gang, Donna here. Today we sit down and talk to a friend of the show, Peter Paul Parker. He and I think the last couple of times when we started our conversation, it always seems kind of like it's going to be a nice, normal conversation, but we always end up talking about many different things. Today, we talked about politics. We talked about music, the future of music, AI, as well as his festival coming up of conscious music. So tune in. Hi, Peter. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. We're just coming out of a heat wave in the UK. It's actually been sunny for a few days. So we're all sort of sitting down in shock and awe.
We had a touch of a heat wave where we got close to like high 90s at the end of August. But now we're kind of it's time to pull out the sweater weather. So I'm not going to complain. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
We had pretty much a mild summer, but it's been very dry.
Wow, it's been completely opposite here. So the weather's going crazy all over the place. So we've had a completely different. From what Europe's been baking all this time, but we've been quite cold actually all summer. So we've just got our late summer now. So it's been quite incredible. But yeah, I like the sunny weather.
Topsy-turvy weather. And yes, some of you guys, if you're a regular viewer, which we do have a couple of regular viewers, even though I took a little break, you may remember we talked with Peter twice already. So at this point, you're kind of a friend of the show. So today, before we started, we actually kind of jumped in talking, and it's like, no, let's save this for the show. So what I want to talk about right off the bat is let's talk about music and how that face of music has changed since, we'll say, the 80s and 90s. I mean, since we ended up with the invention of streaming and downloading, everything in the music industry has changed. And even the books I write, I set them in the 80s because guess what? We didn't have tech. So, and I deal with the music industry and everything. So as you're growing through the saga of this book, you're going to start dealing with those issues. And that's why I did it, because it's like the younger generation doesn't understand. And it's like, oh, I got an LP, and I laugh about this because I have records still from back in the 80s. And now those same records that have been re-released are $25. And I remember when they were like $7. So
wow.
Yeah. So, but you're a musician, so let's talk about how this affects you. I mean, Spotify is great. That's what people say. Spotify is great. It's easy to put my phone and I can go. But how does that affect you?
Well, I remember when it all came in, and I was very resistant for some reason, right in the back of my consciousness. And I thought, this is not good. But people saying, oh, it's good because artists can get their stuff out really easily, and it's. But then I remember going to I was starting to get into the health and well-being sector at that point. I was meeting other people from the music business who were doing much the same thing. And they're saying, well, do you remember the day this all imploded in the UK? And I said, well, yeah, it was kind of when all this technology came in. So there was a vast array of people all doing all sorts of different kinds of work in the music business. And all of that was coming to an end with this introduction of technology. So it all sounds really great if you have an enormous marketing budget and you can still sell or stream to an enormous group of people. But for someone like me who, if I were to have to rely on my royalty checks, for instance, from my streaming, and I don't even know where some of the income comes from, I'd have to live off about 2 pence a day or something like that, which would be good if I was living in India. I could possibly put that up, but I'm not knocking the Indians. But as a professional musician, you think, geez, what happened to that?
I totally get it, because KU, just sorry to interrupt you, KU for page reads, if you use Kindle Unlimited for page reads, it's like 0.0003 per page read. So it's not even a penny.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's the same thing with the publishing world. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, so you've got these that entice you in, and firstly, it was you kind of had to pay I remember my route was you had to pay these particular companies to get yourself put into e-magazines and things like that as it was building up. And it was all good because you got good exposure and lots of hits and things like that. But you're waiting for the check to come in, and it was something that never came. So there was all these other companies jumping in on this, making money out of artists, while the artists are still going, well, hang on a minute, when's the money coming this way? Because it's all going out. And I remember doing that, especially with my first album, Stepping Up. And I put a lot. I went up and down the country just as a solo artist to push it up onto radio stations, and got lots of plays on radio stations. Actually got a small royalty through PRS, which was good because it was all getting logged into the system. But for the sales of the album, it was ridiculous because it was all you could go to any pirate website and just download it for free anyway. So the MP3s, it was just at the time when MP3s were going on to streaming. So there was still the opportunity to sell MP3s. It was like 99 cents, I think it was, sort of 80 odd pence. So I was selling a few digital copies and still actually selling hard copies of my album. And I remember the days when you were saying about LP, someone said they get an LP. I remember we as artists, we used to think about, this is another thing that's died, I think. I was speaking to Skylar Jett the other day, and he's saying, because I was talking about putting an album together, and he's going, that's very old fashioned now. You don't think that way. You don't think. I'm thinking, well, yes, I still do, because it's an album with a theme to it, and it's my artistic input to it. So I want to put not just 1, 2, 3 hit songs. Yeah, I want to have something that has a concept and an idea behind it that actually flourishes and moves people along like a journey. So we've kind of lost that as well as musicians.
Merchant, I had a gentleman named Merchant on, and he had a record come out last year. And yes, it was a whole concept thing. And the problem with streaming services and the way our music is presented to us now, as a younger artist, he told me this. He's like, the fact is, we are consistently wanting something new. We don't appreciate things. We want something new. So therefore, you better put something out quickly. Otherwise, you're going to lose the momentum. And then people don't listen. As you're saying, a concept record. His record is a concept. There's a start to it. There's a whole journey through it. And people don't listen. I mean, can you imagine? We'll use The Wall. I remember when my dad somebody had given him a Walkman, and he had the cassette of The Wall. And I think I was a freshman in high school. And it was like, so maybe 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. And I put this on, and the fact that the music is divided and it's just so intense, and there's a whole concept through it. There's a whole way to listen to the music. And I think we lose that now by just, I'm just going to put it on random and see what comes up. And I mean, there's a time to do that. But initially, when you get a piece of music, a record, you should sit down with it and really embrace it, because the artist did it. I mean, the artist did it for a reason. It would be like picking up a book and then just reading random passages, and you're not going to get the story.
No. I remember that with The Wall. Yeah, it's a brilliant album. Dark Side of the Moon as well. The one that came before that is there's no. I suppose you could listen to Money on its own. That's a great song, but to have that whole feeling wash over you as it takes you on a journey, and it used to be something we always put on in the mornings at the end of the all night parties, so that the sun would be coming up. You'll still be doing whatever you're up to. It was like the sun coming up and the Wall blast, the Dark Side of the Moon coming through, and that big crescendo with the voice. And it was an experience. It was not just listening to music. You're actually part of it, and you could feel the experience washing over you as they intended it to. If you listen to the lyrics, especially The Wall and Dark Side of the Moon, both of those albums got really profound lyrics. So you can either sit there and just let it wash over you, or actually get really involved with what the writers are singing about. And I think that's also another important aspect to music that gets lost, because when I was writing songs and they were getting out there, I think the statistic was about 3% of people actually just listen to the music properly, the lyrics properly, which I think is astounding, really, as well, because music is great, but I think if you're listening to a song and it's got words in it, then I really do feel that the whole package is to listen to the words. But also, I think a lot of artists are trying to hook and, like you're saying, hook people in quickly. Then they're watering down what they're actually really feeling just to try and get that hook. It's a bit like the marketing today in today's world. Everything's like sell, 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 and it feels like that with the artists now, that they're getting pushed down that line to create. If they can't carry on creating, then they get pushed to the side and the next one comes along and then they do that again. So it's like almost like a conveyor belt pushing people onto it. And then when they get exhausted, which it is exhausting, if you keep writing and writing and writing, it's exhausting. And it's not always your best stuff. You get thrown off the conveyor belt and somebody else gets put on behind you. And to me, it's losing its artistic sort of nature, which is what it should have. When I go and hang out with, say, more spiritual people who just sing mantras and things like that, they're brilliant and talented artists, but they would never actually write songs for themselves or for other people to listen to, because they go, what's the point? Who's going to listen to what I've got to say? And I think that's such a sad reflection of how music seems to be going at the moment. I think there will be a turnaround on that when people start to get out there and play live again and people go to more live gigs. But lockdown, I think, must have been the end for me with music, in the respect that I can't get out there and play live anymore. Is gone completely dead. I have to build up a little local following again, things like that. So what I did was I set up conscious music for the people, which is to get conscious artists who the record labels will not go near because they're writing about more maybe esoteric or spiritual type stuff, or actually feelings about how they feel. So, well, no, this world is really, it's peeing me off at the moment, and this is what I feel about it. And it seems like I've spoken to a lot of artists who are really talented people, but not getting anywhere with the music because they want to be like in the more conscious music or conscious, conscious music, which is, I feel, also being ignored. And Skylar Jett, who used to be in the Commodores, he was talking about social conscious music, and he's been trying to get that label out for many years, and he's pretty well known in the business, obviously, after being in the Commodores, and he still can't get that label, social conscious music, out there.
Well, I read something interesting yesterday about Miley Cyrus Bangers tour, that nobody wanted to support her. Nobody, so she had to fund the whole thing herself because nobody wanted to support her. They knew she could do it, but they didn't want to support it. It's all about, at a certain point, and this goes with most companies. This goes most industries, whether it be music or even insurance. When I worked in insurance, I sat in a couple of actuary meetings, and it was just ridiculous because they're like, okay, we're going to write hurricane policies. And I'm thinking, wait a second, you're already financially having some issues and you're going to go write hurricane policies, and you're writing high risk insured drivers, but you're all about getting that quick cash. Well, you know what happened to that company? That company's defunct. It went defunct like 3 years later. And that's the thing with the music industry. It's such a machine. Most entertainment industries, that's why we have the writer strike. That's why we have the actor strike, because they want to sit there and they want to use, we were talking about this too, use AI to basically take their features, their whole persona, and just stick it in a movie wherever they want. And they don't have to pay the actor. And that's scary. That's very scary, because at what point, I mean, let's be honest. I grew up in the 80s. Terminator really stands out a lot. War games. I mean, we want to have a computer run all this. When does a computer become, and I know some people are like, oh boy, she's taking a leap, but when does a computer become sentient? When does a computer just say, you guys are just fools, I got this?
I personally think that's perfectly feasible. If you've got something that does become self-aware, who knows? This technology is so far advanced. I think personally is much more advanced than we actually realize. And they can now take somebody's, they can record them from all angles and also kind of get into the DNA almost and project them into a room. And it's like, my God, well, I mean, who's that? And then they can make them sing pitch perfect, or they can make them dance in ways that human beings can't dance. And to me, when does it get to the point we're going, I'm just looking at a machine. We're watching a program actually at the moment called Black Mirror. And it's like a Netflix thing, and it's exactly this. And there was one case where this woman, a young girl, she's under 25, she's been put into a Loctite contract. She's fed up with it. She doesn't want to sing all the pop stuff with all the pink hair and all that. She said, I can't do this anymore. This is really killing my artistic integrity. I want to do something a bit more darker and a bit more earthy. So what they do is they pump her full of this this drug, and she put her into a coma, and they start sucking out tunes, melodies out of her brain, and then they release that and release her as a virtual makeup of herself. She breaks out of that, and they all get arrested in the end. But to me, this is not too far away from the truth, because you're going, well, where does the AI stop and the humans? Well, when does the human being stop and the AI begin, I should say? Because we're almost in a world where technology is brilliant. And don't ever get me wrong, because I think as a songwriter, I think to have all the technology in my little room here, this little studio, is phenomenal. But if I were to say you can get to little programs like Band in a Box, and you can just go, right, I want a jazz song in A minor, I want at least 7-chord progression, and you just go push the button, there it is. The whole everything's done. So, and then if I go, well, I want to put the melody on top of that, can you put a nice sad melody on top of that? There's the melody. And then you go to, was it Chat GPT? Says, well, I need lyrics on being a melancholy song about sadness or about breakup with a partner. Bang, push the button. So all you got to do, you don't even have to put it together anymore. You just plug it into the machine.
Well, and see, we've had some in the States here. We've had litigation about this. We've had litigation. You cannot copyright anything that is AI. You cannot copyright it. And the fact is, Amazon has now put on, when you go to publish a book, they ask you directly if your cover has been AI'd, if your story has been AI'd, because there was a lot of people just going into Chat GPT or whatever and creating a novel. And granted, most people are complaining that the novel is total crap, but they're still doing it. And so a judge ruled that you cannot copyright AI material. So that kind of puts a kibosh on it. But you have to look at the AI can make people say things that aren't real. They can put somebody in a situation that hasn't happened. So there's lots of different avenues that there's slippery slopes, and nobody is really stopping to think that, hey, what are we doing? What are we doing? I didn't say that, but yet I'm going to be accused of saying it because somebody put that in there. So
yeah, it is a slippery slope. And I think to me, it all comes down to what I would term as arrested development. I personally feel that we've all gone through like a trauma. I think even childbirth is traumatic, but as children, I think we've all been through trauma, i.e. in the respect, if you look at it on a lighter scale, especially the children coming through the 60s and the 70s, we had this permanent fear of nuclear bombs, and then in the 80s it was the big AIDS thing, and then the 90s the banking crashes, and then now in the 20s we've got the pandemic. So we're in a constant state of fear. Personally, this is what I feel, and therefore in that fear we become arrested. We're like in arrested development. We're not actually progressing into adults. Some of us are, and some of us are seeing this, others aren't. And what we've also got is this class of people who've gone to these schools and universities. I went to them. I've met the people who are actually kind of running the country now as politicians, and I rejected it. I thought they're all being conditioned in a certain way to be in a certain way, and they're not actually thinking about what they're doing. They're just thinking of the role that they're doing. So they're not actually conscious about how this is affecting society. And I think AI is a classic example of that, because Elon Musk has even put his hand up and said, you guys need to legislate on this because this is getting completely out of control. So he's carrying on with it with his Neuralink and putting AI into your brain and stuff like that. But he's having to keep up with everybody else who's doing this stuff. And it's to me, it's completely out of control. And what we could have is like an amazing technological world, as long as we're still in connection with our natural world. I think we need to have a balance of the two, because when we lose connection with the natural world, and I'm not talking about living out in the woods.
No.
I think our natural world is this conversations, having mind-opening conversations to think, I've got to push this boundary a little bit of who I am as a human being. And I need to, that's why I think art or any kind of creativity is important for us, because we need to be able to create, because we are natural creators. I know I hear it all in the sort of mind, body, spirit arena, but it's true. Everybody can create. Everybody can create a mood, an atmosphere, even a piece of art to that extent, or even a blog, or, you know, everyone's got a blog, and I believe everybody's got a song in them.
Even when you cook, you create. And to go back to your point, though, you know, when I look at, you know, you're talking about trauma. So I graduated high school around 1985, actually 1985. So I'm 17 and 85. And by the time my stepkids hit 1997, there were school shootings. There were metal detectors in the schools. There were bomb threats. So over here in this country, we have even that. And then we're even more traumatized, because now you can go to the grocery store, you go to a concert, and you might get shot. You don't know. You don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also had, and of course, 22 years ago, yesterday, we had the towers. So it's like in here, we have had the consistent trauma. And I know that you guys had bombings and everything else. I understand that too. So it's like all these little things for political or religious reasons that happen, or because somebody's ideology doesn't match up, or let's be honest, a big one is the greed of the people that are in legislation. They don't want to legislate for the people. They want to legislate for the corporations that are paying them. Because in this country, and I could get in trouble for saying it, but it's true, they pass a law saying corporations are people. How are they?
Yes, people? They did. Yes, they did. Yes.
How are they people? Just tell me how they're people, because they're not a living, breathing entity. They can't die. They're groups of people inside, but they are not people. But yet, because somebody paid enough graft, here we go. This law gets passed.
Yes, but that is kind of that what you're saying now is right. The beginnings of this faceless entity that's kind of coming in, that's losing community, losing human interaction, and losing all of us. I think that faceless thing was the beginnings of it was in the court, wasn't it? A court order where corporations were given the rights of human beings. We've just had a bill come through, which sounds completely conspiratorial, but it's what's happening is they want the UK to go net zero. So I'm really not sure about carbon dioxide myself, as I never saw it as a danger. But they're saying we've got to get it to net zero. So what they're proposing in this bill, and you can look it up, is that if you don't go along with the smart grid agenda, they can come into your house and actually put smart meters physically into your house. They can put smart appliances all around your house. And then if you don't do what you're told with your energy, they can arrest you and put you in prison for a year, or fine you £15,000. £15,000.
Wow.
So this is coming. This is a law that's coming in for this net zero, and you can't make this stuff up. I'm going, what's happening? I didn't think I was going to talk about this, but you can't make stuff. You think, and I wrote to my politician and said, who is coming up with this? And it's obviously coming from, like you say, people are looking after the big corporations while the people are suffering. And it is coming to a climax now, where I think more people are actually getting fed up with this and saying, well, what is really going on?
Well, go ahead.
But there's like a blurred line there that you can't really see, because I do a lot of coaching as well now with people who are in corporations. I actually do that. And how they set up these corporations, they call it the matrix, i.e. there's no one actually responsible for anything. So if you were to get involved with, say, a music company, and you were trying to get to somebody who's dealing with your A&R, I'm assuming this, but I know this happens in other corporations like oil companies and things like that. You wouldn't be able to actually get to somebody who's actually responsible for anything. So you'll be chasing around trying to find who's responsible for this, and there's no one responsible. So you go to the boss and they've got, oh, don't worry about it. So nothing's actually getting fixed in anywhere, in any of these corporations. And I know this firsthand because I'm actually talking to people in corporations where this matrix type thing is happening. So there's no one. This is another thing. No one's taking responsibility for anything that's going on.
There's 2 points here I want to talk, because over here we have think tanks. We have think tanks that create the laws for the congressmen, and they get these bills that have stuff tucked in there, and they don't even read it because it's 400 and something pages. And now it's becoming very apparent that our people that are in office, and nothing wrong with age, I'm not knocking age, but when somebody suddenly has a glitch and just stands there, or they're having somebody whisper in their ear because they don't know that they're supposed to be voting, it may be time for you to leave office.
Oh, you're talking about Finkelstein. Was it Finkelstein?
I'm talking Dianne Finkelstein and Mitch McConnell. Both of them. Just, Mitch McConnell twice now has just been in the middle of talking and just froze. It's like, did somebody not charge him? What's going on? But that these are the things. It's like there's this think tank, so it's like, so they're all working through, here's the bill, you pass it and be done with that. And then I was gonna say, and then I didn't sleep right, so now I've lost my second point. But what were we talking
We've got that in the UK now with this whole transgender issues. There's a private corporation who are putting the curriculum together that's been passed by legislation for the curriculum to go into schools without anyone actually looking at it and saying whether this is right or wrong. So this private corporation can put stuff onto the school agenda without any government oversight or any outside oversight. It's just completely coming from the corporation. And they've just been taken. There's a court battle going on with that at the moment because they say we can't do this to our children. And I'm just going, well, who let that go? Where did that come from? How can you have a private corporation putting it onto the school curriculum, whatever they want, without it being checked? There's no checks or balances on it. No checking whether to see the content is okay for 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds to be seeing this, and obviously it isn't because the parents are going bananas. But it's like I don't know. I don't mind. Anybody can do whatever they want. I am very liberal.
Well, exactly. My father. My father is he can't hear, so we talk via text. And I sent him a picture of me at Disney World when I was a little kid. I think I was about 5. And he's like, well, they've ruined Disney. And I'm like, okay, where is this going? And he's like, those liberals. I'm like, Dad, I do not wish to get political. I do. Oh, this isn't political. Okay. And I know in my back of my head, oh, yes, this is going to be political. And so he's like, they ruined it. I'm like, how did they ruin it? Well, should kids be able to pick their sex? I'm like, Dad, it's their choice. I'm not involved. It's none of my business. I don't care. It's their life. I don't care. And I said, and do you? Well, it's none of my business. I should go. Yeah, you should, because we're not going to talk about this. I'm not going to see your side. And that's the thing. I think people are so caught up in these norms. And the funny thing is, the people that are bitching the most about this are the people that grew up watching Some Like It Hot with Tony Curtis and Tony Curtis and can't think of his name. I am tired.
Walter Matthau. No, not Walter Matthau.
No, I know. I can't think of his name, but you know who I'm talking about. And Milton Berle, dressed in drag.
Jack Lemmon.
Yes. So how many people did they watch growing up in drag? David Bowie. Hello. I mean, these were your heroes. These were your rock stars. But yet now you have this whole phobia because somebody told you now that you shouldn't be that way. And it's gotten so bad here. And I know we're not supposed to talk about religion, but I have to say this real quick. We have the evangelical church here, and they are now dismissing the teachings of Christ. They don't even want to listen to it because it's not going along with their agenda of being so in control. And I'm just like, then how do you even say that you're a Christian? Not that anybody can be whatever they want to be. I don't claim religion is a touchy thing for me, but to hear these people that are dying on the cross saying that they save a baby, blah blah blah, yet you're dismissing the teachings of Christ, kind of defeats the purpose of being a Christian, since Christ is right in the name. But
this is why I love on the spiritual side of it, the Native American Indians view on anybody who's born who has different inclinations to anybody else. I think they revered that, and they thought they're special. So we need to say, okay, we accept them. They're special. Let's look into it, and let's treat them and pull them in.
Yeah.
Make sure they're part of the community, because it's different. And different is okay. And this is, again, the whole conditioning. I think the Arrested Development, we're acting like children. We're acting like children. And it's to me, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. There doesn't be any discussion about anything anymore. It's like, this is it. This is how it is. And that's it. Full stop. Yeah.
If you say something, people are they're going to immediately get their back up. And I remembered what I wanted to say. And when I think back in high school and learning about the Holocaust, and I think, how in the world could we have ever gotten there? How could we have gotten there? But the truth of the matter is, we're getting there again, because the intolerance of people based on their sexual preference or their skin color is still there. And why are we? Why are we that way? Why can't everybody just, in the words of Rodney King, everybody get along? Why can't we all just accept each other for our differences? If you don't like somebody, then don't like them. If they're not in your bed or in your life, why does it matter? It just, everybody wants to stick their nose into something else. And I think the internet and COVID gave this emboldenment, at least over here, I can say what I want to anybody I want. It doesn't matter how I hurt them, because the only feelings that matter are mine. And I was listening to an author talk about how, people started ganging up on another author. And the fact of the matter is, these people that ganged up on him reveled in this person crying, reveled in her pain. And it's like, how is that? And you consider yourself not a bully. This is the people that were picking on this person. You consider yourself not a bully, and that because you had the moral high ground and it was your right. But if it's the other person's belief, why are you even doing that?
My God. Yeah, it's like I liken this to it's the new age deception, right, of spirituality. Part of that is if it doesn't serve you, you can reject it and actually be who you want to be, and express yourself how you want to express it. But they forget the most important part of that. As long as it doesn't hurt or harm anybody or anybody else's property. Yeah. That's the teaching. That's the whole teaching. But they're saying, no, express yourself, be free, be happy, say whatever you want to anybody else. But as long as you're not hurting or harming anybody, which was like the common law, we were brought up with that before this corporate being a human entity, a legal entity, we've been turned into legal entities as well. So it's almost like anybody can say whatever you want to anybody else. Most people, must say, wouldn't say it to your face, but the point is they're doing it on the keyboards, and they can do it under comments and things like that. And it's to me, it's a really scary view of humanity, of how people's minds have been so twisted by all of this stuff that's been happening, that they can't actually feel like I'm talking to you now. I know I could use words to make you feel really good. I could use words to make you feel really bad. I know I have that power inside of you. So do you. To me, the same thing. What they've lost is the concept of, actually, there's another human being at the end of that. What are you doing? That's
exactly. And I've watched people on TikTok say, well, I don't believe in karma, and I don't believe in the rule of three. So I'm just going to put out whatever I put out, and that's it. And it's like, if you don't believe in consequences, basically, because karma can be called consequences, then you're not doing it with humanity's. You're not doing it with the feeling of humanity. You're not doing it with thinking that, like you said, that there's actually a person on the other side. I was doing a live podcast with somebody, and I had somebody come after me, accuse me of using a filter because I have a ring light, and they went off of me, and they actually got on my Facebook and sent me a message saying I was using a filter. And here's the funny thing about that, though. You know what their profile picture was? It wasn't them. It was just some kind of little emblem. So you're coming
Mm.
after me to make yourself feel better. For what? For what? Because
It's
somebody said I looked good?
a
Because that was
strange thing that.
it's just why do we give people, firstly, why do they need that power? What do they need to fill in their life to give them that power? And I'm not trying to judge, I'm trying to figure this out, because maybe if we could figure out why people are doing this, why they're trying to be harmful, and maybe it has something to do with reality TV, because reality TV shows women fighting all the time. They show people being cruel to each other because that is drama and it's ratings, but it, all that does is bleed into society. And I
Mm.
remember Full House when my stepkids were little, and the youngest one started mimicking. She started making smart remarks and everything. I'm like, okay, that's it. She goes, what? I said, we're not watching this anymore. She goes, why not? I said, because you're picking up bad habits.
Mm.
Because this isn't how you should be talking. This is fun for
Mm.
TV, but not in reality.
I remember when I was our big soap over here was called EastEnders in England, which is like the East End of London. And I remember everybody was into it. Everybody watched EastEnders, and if you were at work, you'd come in on Monday morning and you'd talk about, did you see the Sunday episode and all this kind of stuff? And you're thinking, and I thought, okay, I'll start watching. I watched it for about a month, religiously, really every episode. And it suddenly clicked in my mind. This is conditioning me on how I should live my life, because I'm starting to change the choices that I would make. Do I want to do that, or do I want to do this? Do I choose like being stuck in that, or do I choose freedom, for instance? And I went, wow, this is not me. This has never been me. I've always been choosing freedom. I've always tried to say, oh no, I don't want to do that. Okay, the consequences might be bad. Who cares? I'll work it out. I choose this, and I realized that the whole thing was conditioning me, and it was very subtle, but it was very, very obvious to me. And then I started to explain that to other people again. No, you're seeing too much into it. You're seeing too much. And then you see society, how it's formed now from back at that time, especially in London. You think, you've all been watching EastEnders. So it's like walking into the EastEnders set, the way they talk with each other, the way they act, the way they're, like you say, aggressive towards each other. You listen to two friends talking, you think they're having a go. I know the Polish accent is very aggressive, but when the two friends are talking, sounds like they're having a row. Now, when two English people are speaking, it sounds like they're being really aggressive towards each other. And it never used to be like that in this country. It used to be quite friendly and, well, very friendly and very, all right, mate, how you doing? They're quite chirpy, like the chirpy Cockneys, like the Londoners where I came from. They're all bright people. Now it's been so dulled down and conditioned into this grey merge of what I call yuckiness. It's like yucky. You walk out there and you go, oh God, what's happened to you? I played a festival the other week, Kingston Carnival, and I haven't been into my town centre. It's one of the biggest shopping centres in the UK, if not in Europe, and I just couldn't believe the caliber of the people there. And there was one young boy, it must be about 15, 16, because the economy's got so bad, they're now just walking along the street and just picking stuff off fronts of shops and just carry on walking. They don't even run anymore. And this guy pulled him up and he pushed him. And he said, and this young guy, 15-year-old, goes, don't push me. Don't push. If you push me again, I'm going to get the boys down there and we're going to kill you. End of your life, right? Going to kill you. And I go, this is Kingston, one of the biggest town centres in the country, with this kind of activity going on. And for sure, I would imagine if he would have carried on, he would have called his mates up and then they would have gone out and found him and killed him. And you think, wow. And there was two girls walking past my wife and I, and they could have been, the way they were so brusque, loud, spitting everywhere, you think they were two sort of common thug blokes. It was like each to their own, and that's fine by me. But it was just, why do you want to be like that? Because I've seen that kind of behaviour on reality TV from the girls, and you think, Okay, that's how you want to be, but it's conditioning.
Mhm.
It's nothing more, nothing less than conditioning of how this is how you should present yourself. I've seen it also with gangsters. I've known some gangsters in my time, which is what happened in the music business. You kind of got introduced to them, and meeting a gangster's daughter, she was quite rough and brusque, but that was her, and that's how she naturally was because she was in a tough
Right.
um, childhood, right? But these people, I don't think they were who were walking past. I think they were just conditioned to be like that. She was fine, and I accept her for how she was. But this is kind of, you know, when it feels a little bit fake and forced and
Oh yeah.
conditioned.
Yeah.
It's
I
how it
mean,
felt.
when the Hunger Games came out over here, at the theater, and there was the biggest book, and Hunger Games came out, and I looked at my husband and I said, did you ever think maybe that they're trying to set us up and prepare us for maybe what's coming in the future? And he looked at me like, are you nuts? And I'm like, no, just think about it. And then, like, I think 2 or 3 years later, all the restaurants started going with gray. Everything started getting turned, and McDonald's happy yellow arches now, where suddenly the building was gray and squared and boxed, and all the fast food places were gray and squared and boxed. And I'm like, what were you saying that I was miscommunicating? Because the Hunger Games were pretty much gray and bland, and here we
Mm,
are. And I think media does condition us a lot, because I know somebody who, she watches the Kardashians, and she's gotten her lips done, and she's gotten her Botox done, and she's in her 30s, and it's like,
oh my goodness.
yeah. And it's, why do you want that? These people are not real. They're not. It's scripted reality in most cases, but we are sold this, just like the EastEnders, you were saying. We're sold this,
Mm,
that this is how we should act. And I remember, I haven't watched the national news since during COVID, except for when we had the uprising. But I stay away from it, because it's telling you a narrative. It's selling you a narrative. There's other news sources, and I'm not saying go find conspiracy theories, but there's other news sources that are legitimate, and you need to look outside of what is being shown to us. There was a movie in the 90s called Wag the Dog.
mm.
Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, I think yeah.
With
Long time
Kirsten
ago.
Dunst and I think Dustin Hoffman, and it's all about how they create a fake war. And
Yeah,
now
yeah.
with our technology, and I'm not saying that things are fake, I'm not going the conspiracy theory route. All I'm saying is the media knows how to sway us. And yes, I'm in media now with doing this, but it's not the same. I'm not trying to sit there and sway somebody's opinion.
When I went to protest the banks in London, when people were waking up to the fact that the Bank of England isn't actually a bank for us, it's a private corporation that is lending the money government and then charging interest on that, and we have to pay that loan back from taxpayers and then pay the interest back. There was a big surge against the banks, and so I went to protest. Little naive me went up there thinking, I'm going to do my protest, do my bit. But I did it anyway. And we were coming out. I think it was when there was someone who was killed actually in that protest. But what happens? I walked around the corner. There was two people with completely covered faces. Everybody was like me, just normal looking people, and we got kettled in there into this space around the Bank of England. But these two people turned up with hoods and masks and sunglasses, started smashing up one of these banks. And people were going, why are you attacking that bank? Because we're not here to protest banks. We're here to protest the central banking system. Is a difference. So it felt like they were kind of on what do you call them, agent provocateurs. They were kind of trying to cause trouble. And then the police started to kettle and push people, and that's when I think someone got pushed over and cracked their head on the skull, cracked their skull on the pavement, and died. So, and I thought, geez, I've got to get out of here. And I found a way out of it and walked around. And that was the only trouble that was happening, the police pushing the protests. And the very first release of the Evening Standard was bloodbath in London over bank protest. And it was one person that got pushed over. So it felt like the police were trying to wind up the protesters to make them fight back. but nobody was doing that. And on the front page was this guy with blood all over the pavement, and saying it said bloodbath. And I rang my sister-in-law straight away and I said, this newspaper headline is ridiculous, because this is not what happened. And I read the first part of the story. This did not happen. So the second edition, because the Standard always comes out first, second, third, fourth edition, because it's like very quick news for the London area. Second edition, completely different headline. I didn't even have the bank protest on the front page. And I just thought, that was really, we used to have a thing called, what was it, The Rise and Fall of Reginald Perrin. I don't know if you ever saw that in America, but it was the same thing. He used to walk past headlines, newspaper headlines every day, and he'd look at it and go, and then he'd get to his office and go, well, that's not real. And he'd look into it and it wasn't real. And it was a comedy. It was a comedy type thing. But yes, I feel that there is a lot of propaganda in the mainstream media and the mainstream news. And it seems to be going along with an agenda that is not very good for the common man and woman on the street. It's not very good for us at all, because especially over COVID, you've had the biggest transfer of wealth we've ever seen in human history. It's just gone straight up. It's been incredible. And that's fact. There's financial fact. Also, we've seen now the British Medical Journal are questioning the medical efficacy of not just vaccines, but all sorts of different things. It's just released an article. It's a fascinating article to read it, to see where the lobbying money that used to go into these big institutions that have been set up, like the CDC and the FDA, the Ministry of Health. Also, there's another one in the UK, I can't remember. I think it's just called the Health Institute or something like that. And the NIH in America, where mostly it used to be funded by government taxpayers. Now, 50%, 60%, 70%, 80% now coming from private lobbyists. And the British Medical Journal was saying, this is an enormous conflict of interest, and how can anybody be seeing anything with proper eyes when you've got this massive influence on the medical industry? And I go, yeah, at least somebody from like a very established journal, the British Medical Journal, actually speaking up and saying, this is what I saw when I was going around talking during the pandemic to people about holistic health, which is what I'm really into. I wasn't allowed to say anything, but you could have people saying all sorts of stuff about all sorts of other stuff. And you go, how can you say that? You can't say that for sure. You can't say this, you can't say that. I couldn't say anything. All I could stick to was the facts, like vitamin D, immune system, all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to see where we're at, because it's not just in music that this is like imploded, or in art. It seems to be every faction of human society seems to be imploding at the same time. It's a very weird time, but I think really if you start to connect more with yourself, you'll be okay, and you focus on what you're doing rather than trying to fix the bigger picture. I think when we start to communicate with each other a little bit more, so to make each other feel better about each other as human beings, I think that will spread. I think that's how we get over this, because at the moment it is an absolute mess.
Well, I mean, this is true. And the thing is, going back to your take about COVID, as far as the economy and everything, what happened is we're still playing. And I listened to an economist talk the other day, and he is actually somebody who has dealt with the banking system for a long, long time. And he's like, it's greed. It's not capitalism anymore. It's greedism. And what is happening is they're blaming the Ukraine war. They're blaming COVID for shortages and everything, so they can raise prices and make more profits. They're not thinking about eventually nobody's going to have money to buy your stuff.
Yes.
We're not thinking that. We're just thinking of all the money we're going to get. But I think, and you being new age, you understand this. If you look at astrology, astrology, things repeat, and we are right around the same time we were back then. So, and here in this country, we have the whole student loan thing. And fortunately, I'm not in that mess. Mine's taken care of. But my generation was the last part of that generation where you had decent college education that was reasonably priced. Then all of a sudden we figured out we can make money and indebt these people, and so let's jack the prices, let's raise the thing. And just like the housing market over here, they started bundling and selling it.
Yeah.
And so people now, they can't afford to buy a house, and then you have corporations coming in buying houses here, so you can't afford to buy a house. So I
Mm.
mean, it's just our economy is very much based on greed at this point. I mean, Gordon Gekko from Wall Street, greed is good. mm, we're living that now, and I know Oliver Stone said he did not do that movie as a template for how you should be doing things, but played out that way. It has played out that way in a lot of ways.
He's picking up very well, actually. Oliver Stone at the moment, he's doing some good, and his son is doing some good work as well. But yeah, it was the Inside Job. Have you seen that? Narrated by Matt Damon.
Yeah, I believe I did.
When you
Yeah.
see how, and they're still doing it in Greece, they're absolutely pillaging that country to bits.
Well, they said Spain's going to be headed the same way, and that this
Yeah,
is eventually going to go across the world.
yeah. But what they did was they collected all these junk bonds of Freddie Mac and all that kind of Freddie and whatever it was, all that junk debt. They packaged it all up. Moody's was involved with it and everything. This is all fact because there's no laws against it. Wonder why. Packaged it all up, and then they take it over to Europe and say, "We've got this amazing deal for you, AAA credit ratings," and they open it up and it's all junk. So they're having to give their islands away to these managing directors of these banking companies. It breaks my heart because Greece and their whole philosophy and the whole country and all the people are beautiful. When we went over there in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you didn't have to book a hotel. You just turned up and someone would take you into their house. They're so open and beautiful people. Now they're actually putting signs up saying, this beach is dangerous, don't come here. And then underneath they're saying to the locals, yeah, you can come in, but try and keep the tourists out, because they don't want people coming in there anymore, because they've turned 180 degrees to say, welcome to our country, now to say, get out because we've had enough of you. And to me, that is to do with the raping, the pillaging of their resources, because Greece, I mean, the olives that came out, that feeds the whole of Europe, all their olives. And now that's all being destroyed and burnt down. And yeah, it's awful what's happening now. And yeah, it's coming across the world if we allow it. And I don't know how you stop it, but I think to actually let your politician know, or your senator, or whoever your representative is, if you let them know that you know, I think it slows it down a little bit. But more people need to suddenly take a look at this and go, why is this happening now? Why is this happening? And it's not conspiratorial either anymore.
No.
I mean, there was people who are into conspiracy theories, and I don't mind listening to conspiracy theories as long as it's got some sort of credibility to it. But this is not. This is fact. This is what's happening. This is literally a corporate takeover of the world. You've got BlackRock, I think, own about 90% of the assets of the world. It's like,
well, and that they were talking recently because we had the banking collapse here in 2008, and Obama was in office, and there's a document now showing basically that Obama had people from Goldman Sachs helping him, and he's making money, and yes, I voted for him, and I don't knock him, but if this is true, this document, because yes, back to AI, we can create anything we want to form a narrative. But if this is true, if he did have these people, that he wasn't the man that we all thought he was. And that's why the banks got a slap on the hand, and they're still continuing to do what they do. And that's until we actually take back and say, you're not a person. And until we say lobbying is not lobbying, lobbying is bribing. It is legalized bribery. And nobody talks about that. Everybody's like, oh, it's not bribery, it's lobbying. What's the difference? Please tell me the difference, because there is no difference. It's the same thing. I'm still trying to influence you with payment.
I saw this. I studied politics at school for some reason. I don't know why I chose art, history of art, and then I just saw economics and politics. And I just thought, oh, I'll do that. I'll just do that. I didn't mind. I enjoyed the O level of economics, so I'll do the A level, and it just had politics thrown in on it. And I remember going through government legislation and policy making, and they were called quangos at the time, not lobbyists or NGOs. They're called quangos. And I put my hand up to the teacher there and then, and I said, "This is wrong. You got a private company here putting in legislation to these politicians where they were voted in by a certain group of people expecting a certain manifesto. And this is how the system's been set up. But now you've got this quango pushing in and putting in their 10 penneth to get what they want out of it." And I said, "This is wrong, surely." He goes, no, this is how it is. This is how everything gets funded and everything's okay. And go back to sleep, Peter, forget about it. And that was way back then.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know about over there, but over here, a lot of the politicians, once they're done, if they're young, they move into the private entities with these firms that they helped. So it's like, why shouldn't I help them? Because they're going to give me a cushy job that's going to keep me in the lifestyle I'm accustomed to.
And it's not a little amount of money either. This is how big Tony Blair.
Yeah.
He absolutely ripped the British Constitution apart. Not only because we were in the European Union, but he just ripped it apart. The whole court system, he just ripped it apart single-handedly almost. And he was preferable to the banks, and I think it was Morgan Stanley or something like that. He just walked straight into a consulting job where he doesn't have to do anything, maybe a couple of speeches a year, and he's getting millions.
Yeah.
You think, well, I wouldn't mind, $1 million would be. Yes.
I mean, that's the sad thing. And they were talking about, there's a couple of millennials or Gen Zs on TikTok, and they're talking about the economic divide, that if you evenly broke down the economics, that the boomers would all be multimillionaires, but every other generation besides the boomers, especially Gen Z, I think they said they would get like $79,000 each because of all the wealth where it's accumulated. And that's the thing. The one thing that they don't think about the economy, especially when they talk about raising taxes and everything, they don't think that the working man keeps putting money back into the economy. The rich person sticks that money away. They buy a boat and that's it. They buy a house. That's it. It's not them living paycheck to paycheck like most people are. Wondering, and then the stress that goes with that.
Oh, that's why they want to keep you working and working and working and working, so that it somehow keeps this thing going. I've always thought that growth is a bad thing if it's not sustainable. You cannot just suddenly grow and then not sustain it, because it's always going to cause bubbles and collapses. And that's what we had. I'm not saying go back to the gold standard or even sterling for this country, but what happened with the great wars that happened before, was it 71? I think we went into fiat currency, but the great wars, you had a massive inflation during the war, then it would anchor straight back down onto the value of what your currency was based on, i.e. gold or silver. And as soon as it came off, I think it was to fund the Vietnam War, Nixon put it onto the fiat currency for the world currency. And it went up, and inflation went up, but then it just carried on going up and up and up and up. Whereas you'd probably be able to buy a beer, I don't know, for 10 cents or whatever before that. Now, how much is a beer? Or even a loaf of bread? It's just like 100 times the price.
Yeah. I mean,
unbelievable.
My mom used to sit there and say, "Oh, we need a good war." And I'm thinking, no, we don't. We've been in a war. I mean, truthfully, the United States has been at war all the time. We're always at war with somebody. It doesn't matter if it's just us monitoring somebody. We are always at war. I mean, somebody told me that. I was like, yeah, right. And I actually looked at the diagram, and pretty much we are always fighting. And that's the sad thing. Our military budget could do so much more. But now apparently the people that are leaving the military are telling the people that are trying to enlist, don't. That's how bad. I mean, it's getting really dicey over here, because you get a job, a corporate job, and you're still on public aid because you can't afford things, because you're not making a living wage. And now apparently the military is getting to be the same way. So what are you doing with these multi-billion-dollar, this budget that you guys have? What are you investing in? Oh, are you giving it to your corporate buddies? I think it was
Mm,
Eisenhower who said back in the late 60s, watch
mm.
out for the military industrial complex. And that's where we're at. And that's BlackRock. That's those corporations that are trying to rule the world.
Yeah, have you heard Eisenhower? That was a brilliant speech. But have you heard JFK's last speech at the American Media Association?
No.
You've got to listen to that. You've got to listen to that. It was about 3 weeks before he was shot. And he says there is something in the background that is really nefarious and is not good for humanity. And I want to bring a politics back for the people. He literally lays it out, and you go, wow. But I'm pretty sure it's still be on YouTube. So just look up JFK's last speech, the AMA, the American Media Association, and it's jaw dropping.
It's interesting.
Just as jaw dropping as Eisenhower's speech was. You go, did he really say that?
Well, and it's interesting that you brought JFK up, because yes, there's the big conspiracy theory, but apparently one of the Secret Service people said that there was an extra bullet that he found on the car. This just came out like 2 days ago. Amazing. And that they actually put it on the gurney, and then it was lost forever.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, this is an older gentleman now. Is he telling the truth? We don't know. Is this just some conspiracy? We don't know. We'll never know.
No,
we'll never know, because there's things, like he said, there's things working behind the scenes that we're not aware of. But anyway.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And it's a very strange world that we're living in at the moment. I personally think it's an energy rather than people conspiring behind the scenes. And I think that energy is going to be lifting soon. I think we've got another 2 years of a little bit trickiness. So hold on tight.
You mean okay? We're actually going to see Oz?
Yes. Follow the yellow brick road.
Exactly. So I know we danced around a lot of topics here, but you also wanted to talk about your conscious music event, and that's going to be in March of next year. So tell us a little bit about that.
What I do now every year, we've done the first one, is get a group of conscious artists, singer-songwriters who, some of them had real long careers in it, people who want to sing conscious music, i.e. music about singing from the soul kind of thing. So we're running this online concert. It's all free, so you don't have to pay anything for it. And we're always looking for either artists to play or people to attend. So we had a fair amount of people attending last year, or this year, I should say. Next year, we want even more people. So to support the artists, because what we're really seriously contemplating is setting up a cooperative for musicians where they can have MP3s on the website, theconsciousmusecollective.com, and sell their art, sell their books, sell their music, sell whatever they create. And therefore, there will be no middleman cutting in on their profits. Obviously, the collective will take a cut so that it can keep perpetually promoting itself. But that's what we're seriously considering at the moment, is trying to set up a cooperative to help artists. So really, it's the beginnings of that venture. So we do need support for people just literally to turn up to the gig. And the artist was good. The last feeling we had was me having the vision of showing lots of people out there in the world trying to make it a better place. And it worked. It was like 3 hours of entertainment. We had short videos of people actually expressing what they were doing, and also artists who were singing about what they're going through at the moment. And it was beautiful. And we had a few people watching who are fairly well known in the music business, and they said that was a really good show. You just need to advertise. Well, he said advertise the crap out of it, but excuse my French.
No, that's fine.
You wanted to advertise it, get it out there bigger, because this is a really good idea. So yeah, I need to get some publicity on that and try and get more people to turn up. And you can just go to the consciousmusecollective.com, or just even Google conscious music, and the website will come up near the top. And all you do is just register for tickets, and you get the tickets. It's actually on a Zoom call like this, but you get tickets to come in as a webinar, and you can watch the concert for free. Nice. And we would really love you to have you there if you're interested in conscious music. So yeah, it's about, because I've been writing some really interesting songs recently, and I wanted a vehicle for me to play live on, and this is This is what we're trying to achieve: is get more conscious artists out there singing more and doing their stuff. Because I think music needs to come back to the people and away from AI and away from the corporations. I think music is such an important part of our life, all of our lives, that we really need to take back control of it and actually start to appreciate people, what they're writing, even if you're not. What I liked about what we did last time is we had jazz singers, we had rock singers, we had a really ethereal singer, we had a sitar player and a flute player, and we had all sorts of eclectic types of music that were all in one bundle, as it were, but it worked. That's what was wonderful, that it worked. And to me, I remember being in a band with a guy who used to put some weird stuff in his chord changes. And he goes, yeah, but if you really think about it, you can make these things work. And we did. And I'm really proud of all the team who helped me put it together. So, yeah, we're doing that March I can't remember the exact date. I think it's March the 19th or something like that. Yeah. March the 16th. March the 16th. That's the date of it, 2024. So
it'll be here quicker than you realize.
It's coming around. Time is going very quickly, and that's also to do with the cycle that we're in. Is called the quickening. Time is speeding up because the Earth is moving in a strange way, I think. So it feels like time is like speeding up, and it kind of is. But I feel what's good is I don't feel my age, because it feels like that time's gone, but I haven't changed at all. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Although as soon as you said the quickening, all I could think of was the movie The Highlander.
Yeah.
That's all I could think of. But that was a pretty painful quickening. So let's hopefully it's not going to be like that.
No, I think it's going to be a lot better. I think when more people see what's going on, I don't think we're going to put up with it. I think the human, what we've been used as is like a matrix almost, from the big corporations taking over and getting people to come into their corporations, and then compartmentalization was much like the matrix. You do this, you do this, you do this, and none of you know what the other one's doing, so therefore you could never set your own thing up. I'm in charge of this, that's it, full stop, I've got the monopoly. That, to me, I think is going to come to an end, because that was like an old male energy sort of control freak type thing. I think we're moving more into like a feminine energy, which is more loving and nurturing at its base. And I think when you get the balance of the two, which is you'll have something half decent as a human society. I think America was formed on that, and America was formed for you to be free. And I really do feel sorry for my brothers and sisters living in America at the moment, because I'm just seeing the destruction of an idea that was amazing. So taken from the Magna Carta and improved upon, is one of the only civilizations that's done that wasn't taken over by a dictatorship and then turned into something worse. It was actually breaking away from a dictatorship, turning into something better. Right. And you think, why is that being destroyed now? Because it is. Yeah.
Pluto, we also are in a Pluto return, and to go for the metaphysical route, democracies only usually last about 250 years, and we are right around there. So, and then, the thing is, now with all the research that people can do, our atrocities of our own are showing up. The things that we've done to go into other countries are showing up. And that kind of makes you look at things and go, we're not exactly what we appear to be over here. And it's unfortunate, because like you said, we were sold that we were the land of the free and home of the brave. And then we look at what we've done and how truths have been revealed, how we sold guns and how we were involved in cocaine trades and how we did. And it's just kind of like, what? I guess we weren't so innocent.
Yeah, I think before that, I think when it was in first made a country, I think it was really. But then again, the corruption comes in, the greed comes in. And it really, from my experience, it doesn't take much to ruin something that's good. I really do believe in that saying, one bad apple will spoil the whole barrel, and I think it's true. I
Mhm.
think it's a very small amount of people that's done this, and I think that they will be finally seen now for what they're doing. Someone came up with the expression philanthropaths, philanthropaths, which I think people who are making out that they're philanthropists and doing good things for humanity aren't actually
Wow.
doing that. What
Yeah.
they're doing is they're shuffling money around that goes back to themselves, making out that they're doing good things for people, but basically there's always an angle to it that always comes back to them. So they're not real philanthropists, and that's where the expression philanthropaths comes from, because they're
Well,
like psychopaths.
somebody, not to put Elon in the same place here, but they were talking about how Elon basically he gets paid in stock. So he does a stock buyback, he takes a loan on the stock, he ends up paying back the loan from selling stock, and he ends up making money off the interest plus. So it's like you and I can't do that.
No,
But so
no.
he's not working hard and he's just continually just making money this way
It's
because of
like a
stock
tap that
buybacks.
turned on. Yeah, that happened back. It wasn't again in the 90s where they in the stock exchange they had I think AI then, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe 200s, where it was just like a croupier just coming in and scooping up,
Mm-hmm.
just scooping money into accounts. And you
Mm-hmm.
think, what kind of mindset do you really enjoy, just seeing figures get bigger and bigger and bigger on your screen? Because when you get to a certain point, it doesn't really matter
Well, you can't
how many
take it
figures you
with
got
you.
there.
We're all gonna go. You can't take it with you. What do you want, a velvet lined casket? I mean,
Yeah.
what do you want? Do you want a gold casket? What, you can't take it with you. So what are you doing by watching your other members of society suffer?
Mm.
What do you gain by that? And I think that's really what we have to look at. It goes back to the bullying situation. It goes back, the trolls on the internet. What satisfaction are you getting by watching somebody suffer?
I think it is like we was talking about at the beginning, is the trauma, and the people I went to school with who became prefects. And as soon as they became prefects, they had the little badge on them. And then they saw the younger boys, because we were like in the fifth and sixth forms, and they saw the younger boys. You watched them being real authoritarians to the younger boys, stealing their cigarettes and all this kind of stuff. And I used to watch that and go, and then I would have a word with them, go, "Oi, you leave those kids alone." There's a song in that somewhere. You leave those kids alone. Stop bullying those kids. And to me, it's an expansion of that. They've got into this position of perceived power that we've allowed them to have. And now I think with this net zero type thing coming up, how they see or the world changing is to bring everybody into poverty, so that people can't afford energy. So therefore, you have to make it up as you go along, because you're saving the planet, as it were. I think the planet will heal itself if we allow it to heal itself. I stop polluting it, stop putting so much plastic into it and things like that. I think the planet is intelligent enough to heal itself. So for us to go through all of this stuff, I think more people are realizing what the political class are doing is absolutely abominable, because it's coming from the elitist class. They're not elites, the elitist class, who are like looking at us and not really caring about their fellow brothers and sisters on this planet. And I don't think they do care at all. One little bit. I think it's
it,
all fake. But
it's
what do you do? I mean, what do? You look at them, you go, goodness me, how can you be a sentient, conscious being and actually be like that? To me, is like,
it's the false Marie Antoinette quote, let them eat cake.
yes.
I mean, that's the thing. It's still that mindset of let them eat cake. It's not going to affect me, so why do I care? But the truth is, we're all connected, whether it is by spirituality, by energy. We are all connected. I had a guru on, a yoga guru, and he talked to a yogi, and he talked about the fact that if we all sat for 5 minutes and had the same thought about healing the planet, we could all do it. We could change
Yes.
the vibration, but we don't
Yes.
look at that. We look at the tangibles of money, of those things, the things that we can touch. We don't think about the energy or the connection.
That's why I love my Ki Gong classes, because it's like a South Korean form. And each time somebody comes to my class, and they do it like just an email from someone in New Zealand who just popped in on one of the online classes, because you see here seeing her sister, and she said, my life's a bit busy for what I feel traditional Qigong is, but I did your class, I did it twice. I was so taken by it, and I said I've never felt so connected with myself within the space of an hour. And I just thought, yes, that's all you need to do, is just connect more with yourself. And when you start to connect more with yourself, you actually start to realize there's something a little bit more to me than just how I act, how I am, what I do. There's a lot deeper to it, lot deeper, a lot of more depth to all of us, which is why I love Qigong in that respect, because the way that I feel about it is more about the connection to the earth and connection to the people. It's like my Master Jean, who used to teach me, she used to say a lot of people have spiritual diarrhea, i.e. they're talking about, oh, the connection, everybody's one. But I said, if you haven't got that connection to the earth and also the connection to humanity, as well as the spiritual connection, whatever that is, then you're going to have either spiritual constipation, you can't express yourself properly in the way that you really want to as a human being, or you're going to be talking a load of gobbledygook about the Arcturians and the Lemurians and all this other stuff, which is all cool stuff, but we don't know that right here now in this present point in time when we need to change things. So to me, it's like a distraction. It's about us focusing on ourselves.
Like this.
Yes. Oh, that's a brilliant one as well. Yeah.
Bing,
bing, bing, bing, bing. And now people in their 20s and 30s having this issue with the neck, serious issue with the necks. Their postures are changing. Going into Kingston and seeing some of the men kind of like this.
But think about this though for a second. Isn't it interesting that the way evolution worked? I know evolution's a bad thing, but think about evolution. We were hunched over, and now guess what? We're going back.
Yeah, go backwards. Who knows? But yeah, it is very interesting times we live in. And I personally feel we are in the Kali Yuga, which is what the Vedas teach us. And this is showing us, and this is what they say in the Vedas, exactly what you don't want in your life. You're seeing now what's coming up. You're seeing very clearly, this is what the Bible says as well, the apocalypto, the lifting of the veil. You're seeing right now what you don't want and you don't want to be like. So in that respect, if you're seeing that, you have to start to move the way that you act, feel, think, your emotions. You have to move it away from that so that you become more in tune with yourself. And you might be a rascal like me. I'm a little bit of a rascal. I like to play and have fun. And when I go to the elderly community centres, I play with them and toy with them and go, you're a bit of a bad boy, Peter. I say, yes, but I'm good. My heart is good, but I like to play. It's not because there's too much of this too serious in like the spiritual or new age era. Sometimes I think we need to be who we are and accept who we are, whatever form that takes, as long as you don't hurt or harm anybody else. But you can see clearly what you don't want to be, and you can get sucked into it very easily. I.e., you were talking about politics earlier, or religion, or even now war. Even speaking to Ukrainians about their war, and you think, oh, I can't say that because that's going to upset you. And it's like
there was a guy, a dentist, talking about how he had a patient and that it's hard for him to do his job because and it wasn't a comedy skit. She gleeked. She put her tongue to her teeth and she gleeked. Well, the lady ended up saying, she's like, oh, I'm a squirter. Well, that has a total different connotation now. And he's like, I'm trying to figure out how not to say anything or respond to this woman. She said it 3 times. He's like, if she would have said it one more time, would have had to dismiss her. And she's a sweet old lady, but I could not, I can't talk to her like that because words have changed.
Yes.
And that's a problem we all find ourselves in, because there's certain words now that we've used throughout our life that now you can't use, because
I play with my wife with that a lot, because she'll say something like, Ooh, that's a bit racist.
Well, I mean, come on, I know what you guys used to call cigarettes, and you could definitely get in trouble for saying that now.
Yes, yes. Just having a fag.
Yes, yes, that would get you in so much trouble right now. The wrong
I
person
know.
hears it, you're going to get roasted.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, times have changed, and I'm not against change, but sometimes it's just like, even as a writer, because yeah, I do write in the 80s, and to be factual, I have to use some words that may not be appropriate.
I personally feel my father used to say it a lot to us as children: sticks and stones will break your bones, but words should never hurt you. And I really do believe that. I think what's happened is we're too connected with our thoughts and feelings and emotions, which are so transient, and we're not connected to actually what we really are, which is energy. Right at the core of us, we're energy. And if we could tap into that energy, we'd suddenly realize you don't lead. It's like people say, well, who are you? And they go, well, I'm a musician. No, no, actually, you're not. You're not a musician. Well, what am I then? Exactly. What are you? You don't know what you are. And it's more tapping into that, I feel, would be, which is what the religions in the world have tried to do. And they've twisted it. They've twisted it so that they could bring in their own gain. A great box set we saw called the Borgias, the Catholic popes, the Spanish Catholic Pope, and the beginnings of that was brilliant because it was this encrusted hand with this beautiful encrusted bowl with all jewels and gold and everything like that coming across the screen, and this hand with all dirty with like threadbare clothes coming over and putting the money into this encrusted pot, and then the hands coming back apart. And I'm thinking that should be the other way around, really. You should be giving to the poor, not the poor giving to you.
Yeah.
And how everything's been inverted with our what I would call our spiritualism, which is really just you, your energy body, which is connected to, like you say, everything on the field, the quantum field, which some people would call it God, other people would call it the field or the Tao, which is the Tao philosophy, or Krishna, which is the Hindu philosophy. Whatever it is, doesn't matter what you call it. We are all connected on that field. And I think that's important for us to start to realize that what you're doing, you're seeing maybe a mirror of yourself in somebody else. And sometimes when you really do something really does great with you from somebody else coming into your life, sometimes that could be something inside of you that you don't actually like about yourself and you need to change. So when you start to see life from that perspective in a little bit deeper way, you suddenly realize there's a lot more to this experience than actually meets the eye. And when you just base it on money, greed, materialism, it becomes such a sad and shallow existence. And I know that from having people gone up into the banking system in London, made millions and millions and millions, and still miserable as hell. Got everything they ever wanted, but still miserable as hell because there's no connection within themselves and with the people around them. And I find that really sad. So if we could find the balance that we've got this amazing technology, we've got all this wonderful stuff that could be creating great houses with. We could be more connected with nature and have everything, have our cake and eat it and have a wonderful life. And I think, but are we going to do that as a species? I don't know. I think as we're going to do that in communities, yes, I think that's slowly building. Good people are starting to connect more all over the world because of Zoom like this,
right?
And having decent conversations and opening people's minds up. So within smaller communities, pockets will grow. And I feel that that's where the changes are going to come because at some point there's going to be enough people turning around and saying, "I'm not putting up with that anymore."
Right.
What am I going to do? We had it with the pensioners when they tried to get them to change putting the bins out on a different day in I think a borough of London, and every single one of them refused. So they had to reverse the policy to say, "Okay, we'll go back to that day." So it's just really rejecting what is happening at the moment. I think on a deeper level will help stop this coming in. It's not due to come in anyway. If you look at it from the Vedic astrological viewpoint, we're hitting the bottom of like a cycle and then rising back up into a better cycle, and then it drops to even worse than this when you will have no way out of this. So I think we're on a good time to be in the planet, actually, to be able to see what you don't want, and also to do something about it. I try and stay a little bit clear of it. It might get a bit uncomfortable, but I think you can stay a little bit clear of it. I really do firmly and passionately believe that. But when the next time comes around, there will be no chance for humanity to get out, and that's what it says. And from doing extensive readings from the Puranas and the Vedas, to me, they're explaining exactly how this society is. I.e., there will be enormous hypocrisy, enormous corruption. You'd have students killing their teachers. You have people just killing people for fun and all this kind of stuff. It's written, it's all in there, and it all says that about today's world. But it does say there's going to be a bounce up into a golden age, which is, we're kind of coming into that now, which is why you're seeing what you're seeing. Because if you think about, if this was to really take grip and you not being able to do anything about it, we would never be able to have this discussion. So there is grassroots and hope. There's elements of, not like I was fooled by Obama because he brilliant hope, and I thought, yeah, brilliant, there's someone here who's going to actually do something. But then looking back, because I was in such a daze, he didn't really say anything. All he just said was there's great hope. And he's a beautiful orator, wonderful speaker, very charismatic man. I'm sure he's a great laugh to be around. But he didn't do what he said he was going to do for the people. And that was one of the biggest letdowns I think I've had in politics for a long time.
But I think that's the problem. We have so many outside forces puppeteering everybody that's in power. And I mean, our president before this one, you listen to any of his speeches and it's word salad. It's not coherent. It rambles. And not to make any offense to the president we have now, I don't think he should run again. I think he's too old. I think we need younger people in office. And yes, Obama was a younger person. I understand that. But I think we need to have our people in there that are moral and not so willing for the greed to pay them. But the problem with that is you'd have to change the laws. And in order to change the laws, you have to have the right people that aren't going to be bribed. So it's just like a big hamster wheel. And until we actually sit down and go, enough is enough. You know, to quote Donna Summer and Barbara Streisand, enough is enough. We can't take it anymore. And I mean, that's the thing. It comes down to a point of, when is enough enough? Kids getting killed in school on a daily basis isn't enough to do something about guns in this country. But we want to worry about a drag queen telling a fairy tale story in a library. Something there seems a little off, if you ask me. But it's something to gin up the base, to get them to get their agenda. And it's always, I mean, you can look at, if you research Jerry Falwell, you'll see how they created and got Reagan into office to get this agenda going so they could repeal Roe v. Wade and all these other little laws that they've repealed, because they would like to see us as a theocracy. Which, didn't we leave you guys because of that?
Yeah, well, I went out as well. So I tried to go down that route of becoming a free man of the land. You can do it, but I tell you, the hoops and everything you got to jump through to do it, and you're like a pariah anyway. So it's very difficult to become a free man of the land in this country, but it's still open. You can still attempt to do it. But yeah, it is. Donald Trump was amazing because he says nothing, and yet everybody's cheering him. It's like, wow.
Well, Jim Jones, Jim Jones had a bunch of people drink Kool-Aid, and did he really say a lot?
Yeah, it's like a quite incredible society that we do live in today. I think it's we just had that recently actually on one of our news programs. It's a one that's growing in popularity actually, but it's called like the Conspiracy Theorist National News Service. But they had a doctor came on and he was talking about the official numbers of children going missing in the world, and he was like really upset because he writes a lot about the medical industry. He does vlogs on the medical industry. He talks a lot about that, and he's finding corruption there everywhere, which is what I'm talking about. The BMJ article was where I got that from, and he was talking about this, and the woman, because he said about slavery, the woman wasn't shocked at so much the figures. He said, but she shouldn't be using that word slavery. And I just nearly screamed at the screen. It doesn't matter about the word, is what's actually happening is wrong. These children are disappearing into sex slavery or whatever, exploited for their labor or whatever. There's children being born into this world that are actually literally walking into hell. And that should stop.
Yeah.
Full stop. Doesn't matter about the words, what word you use, blah, 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 doesn't matter. And to me, that was like a big instance of like, come on, let's not worry about whether the word slavery is going to offend somebody or whether the word racist is going to offend somebody or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's what is actually happening is the most important thing to address. And that's what he said. He was almost in tears when he said it. I said, I don't want to sit here and argue about the word slavery. I just want this to stop, because this has shocked me to actually do any research into this. And he's a brilliant researcher, and see how many people in America, Europe, UK, all across the world, he had different figures, and it was like shocking, the tens of millions of children that are going missing literally every year. So
it's something that needs to be looked at. It really is.
Like everything else we've been talking about.
Yes, I think we came on to talk about music, and we did talk about music, and we talked about a lot of different things, which usually is what happens when you and I sit down and talk. So
yeah,
it's been a fun time, and I will put the link up for your music festival. And I
thank you very much. Yeah, I'll send you out through the details with that and the Conscious Muse Collective. Yeah, we want to get that going. Going to start building up momentum towards the show very soon, actually, because, like you say, time's slipping away. So, any support that your listeners could give us would be deeply appreciated, because it's something we're starting off as brand new, and as you know, if you haven't got massive budgets to put behind things, very difficult to get traction. So, any help from anybody would be gratefully accepted, because we need to spread the love, right? We need to spread the love.
Understand. Thank you, Peter.
All right. Speak to you soon. Yeah.
As I said, leading into this, it was a very diverse conversation, and it went a little longer than normal, but sometimes we do have those long podcasts, and that's okay. I hope that you guys got some information out of it. There are many topics we discuss, as well as the economy. And while that is not normally what we would dive into, sometimes I think we do need to look at different things. The podcast this season, as I talked about in my opening season episode, was that we were going to talk about music. And yes, we did talk about the music industry. And ultimately, when you think about it, the economy, politics, because after all, we had the ruling on AI here in this country, they all play together. Everything is connected. And that was something that we talked about too, that energy and everything is connected. And that's okay, because that's where we really need to start paying attention. If we're all connected and energy is connected and we're working through those things, those fields, then we have to pay attention and understand that what I say to you is going to affect me in the long run. Maybe not right away, but if I have compassion and I know that my words hurt somebody else, or my actions or something I do hurt somebody else, I really need to realize that there are ramifications for me, because ultimately we're all connected. And unless you turn off your feelings and your emotions in the connection with somebody, you're always going to know. So I'm not saying don't stand in your power. I'm not saying I'm not telling you to be a people pleaser. All I'm saying is think about what your words are, what you're saying, what do they mean? And is it going to hurt somebody? Because you don't want to traumatize somebody. We talked about that. And I've said it before on the show. I had somebody when I was in a sophomore year in high school, so 15 years old, tell me that if my mother loved me, she would be down in New Orleans with me instead of living in Shreveport, where she had a job. And eventually we would move. But at the time, this girl took it upon herself to look me dead in the eye and said, if your mother loved you. And I remember it's hurting me. And let's be honest, those words had power because guess what? I still remember it and I still talk about it. And while some people will say, we'll just get over it, I am over the feeling of it, but those words still had power. So think about what you're saying, because sometimes your statement that will never mean anything to you and you will forget it might just hurt somebody or cut them to their core. So pay attention and use compassion and love when you're talking. On that note, I hope you had a great, I hope you enjoyed the show. And well, as always, Rich Zai from 30 Year Audio did the sound. And I hope to see you next time if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening, wherever you're choosing to listen and whatever time, I hope you enjoyed the show. So on that note, I hope you have a great day, evening, weekend, whenever. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye. The Better 2 podcast is mixed, edited, and produced by Rich Zai of 30 Year Audio Productions.